Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. It's very difficult for me to launch this presentation and also see how many people we have here. I'm hoping that we've got a good, healthy number joining us, and I'll check periodically to see who has joined us for tonight. We're really appreciative of the interest that we've had in this relationship and sex education consultation. We feel that this is a really important part of the school's process of responding to the government changes, to considering what we're planning to deliver, gaining feedback from our stakeholders and importantly our parents and our community, and then we will work to develop our policy and our practice, ensuring that we deliver the best service we can for our pupils. The aim for tonight is to tackle some of those government changes very briefly, to answer some of the questions that we've had put into us, and hopefully to take some questions live, which is always going to be a fairly tricky process for me to manage, but we will do our best in this new world that we're working in with less interaction than we'd like for an event like this. We'll try and work around that, and we'll have some follow-up hopefully after the event where we share the video link to parents so they can access it and potentially send in some more questions. I'm very lucky to be joined by Mrs. Kirsten Dixon, who is the head of PSHE. If you'd like to say hello, Kirsten.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Kirsten and I have been working very closely on the work in preparing for the relationships and sex education, and I'm taking a bit of the credit for the hard work that she has put in working to develop the curriculum and work with my colleagues who are going to deliver it. So first of all, I'd like to just say that at RSE, we want all of the children here to grow up healthy, happy, safe, and able to manage the challenges and opportunities of modern Britain. I'm also a parent as well as a member of staff, so I can see things from both sides of the camp, if you like. I can say with total conviction that whilst I have really high hopes for my daughter's academic studies and outcomes, her health and her happiness are far more important to me. With both of those points in mind, I think it's actually quite pertinent to say that the learning that takes place in PSHE could be argued to be some of the most important learning that happens here at our school. It will help children to flourish in the modern world. The broader PSHE curriculum, and specifically the ideas explored within relationship and sex education, aim to equip children with the knowledge to make informed decisions about their well-being, health, relationships, as well as preparing them for successful adult life. The recent changes that have been implemented have aimed to bring the content covered into the 21st century so that it's relevant for your child and my child. As a school, we've been given flexibility to deliver the content in a way that is age and developmentally appropriate and sensitive to the needs and religious backgrounds of our pupils. We hope that the document that we sent out in advance of this meeting helped give you an oversight of the way in which we plan to deliver this curriculum. Mrs. Dixon is going to talk a little bit more about the specific structure of our curriculum and the content that we plan to cover in terms of the sequence and timing for that. One final thing I'd like to touch upon is parental rights. The government have determined that parents cannot withdraw their child from health education or relationship education element of relationship and sex education. It's really important that all children receive this content, covering topics such as how to stay safe in the modern world and how to develop healthy and positive friendships and relationships. At RSE, we will be delivering the sex education content in a way which carefully considers the age and other characteristics of children. Our aim is for all of our pupils to take part in this element of the curriculum. But if you do have concerns about your child participating in any specific element of the sex education curriculum, you may contact the headmaster in writing, and we will explore your concerns and hopefully we can find a resolution. I'm going to hand over to Mrs. Dixon now, who is, as I said, the head of PSHE. She's going to talk more about the details of the planned curriculum. So Kirsten, if I...
There we go. Okay. Good afternoon from me as well. I'm really glad that so many of you can join to listen to this and hopefully put in some questions. For me as head of PSHE, what's really important is that you know that at RSE we deliver relationship and sex education as part of a wider PSHE curriculum. And it just occurred to me, you might not actually know what that means. That stands for the personal, the social, the health and the economic education of your children. So you might have perused our curriculum map that was attached to the invitation for questions and for this evening, and it outlines the topics, and it shows you they're embedded in and surrounded by a variety of topics that we really think students can be taught to facilitate their personal development here. They're not just standalone lessons. We're really, really proud and excited for this PSHE curriculum because it's not just in lessons, it dovetails with assemblies, with tutor time activities, where appropriate with chapel service, head of year assemblies, and maybe even with boarding activities. And it all underpins this holistic ethos that we strive for at RSE and that we're so proud about and think the students benefit so much from. Now, I'd like to say a little bit about the logistics of this. PSHE is delivered in what we call a spiral curriculum, and I'm making a spiral here, and you might have noticed this from the curriculum map in the attachment. Effectively, what it means that each subject area is addressed each term, and then each topic each year again, but with developing knowledge and with developing concepts in line with the student's age, as well as with emotional and physical needs by the students. Each topic gets revisited and readdressed because they're just not the kind of topics that can be only addressed once and ticked. They need to take into consideration maturity, developmental stages, and the emotional feelings of the students. They will also take into consideration contemporary developments, local and national developments that might occur in the world of the students and that might influence them in their learning. Now, one thing that could concern you as a parent, and that might concern me, I've got 3 children at the school myself, as a parent, is that the delivery of topics might be of topics that we haven't yet addressed at home, and that I might feel quite strongly of addressing in my own setting. I might have certain cultural or religious expectations. You might feel that there are certain past experiences that a student has gone through, and that might be difficult for them therefore to learn about certain topics. And that's why we at RSE have taken the really, really careful and fantastic decision, in my view, that PSHE is delivered by the heads of year of the students. So apart from me, who gets to do it because I get to write the lessons, it's really heads of year who are in touch with their students. And I think that's a really, really massive benefit. So benefits to the students, because they have the chance to interact with the heads of year. They can feel supported and known by the heads of year. And they certainly know someone who knows their issues, things and concerns that are going on are very well catered for. The other way around, the heads of year have a fantastic chance to interact with the students they look after in a totally different level. Another thing that addresses this concern is that each lesson is built with a variety of tasks and activities for varying personality types. So many of these allow students to deal with topics at their own pace, within their own comfort zones. And to this end, we also made the decision that we would not like to assess them with traditional key assessment tasks at the end of every unit, but instead we will give them a chance to evidence their understanding in a much, much more reflective manner. Finally, I think it's hugely encouraging to see that so many of you are actually interested in these issues surrounding the delivery of RSE. And I want to thank you for this interest, and I want to thank you for your contributions here, because we'll endeavour to help your children and young adults to grow and develop and flourish, as Mr. Gale said, into these fantastic young adults. And we feel PSHE and RSE in particular is a huge part of that, but we do need your support with it. So it's really for us, really important for us that you are on board with us in the delivery of RSE. So please do keep in touch with questions, with concerns, with worries, and also with any ideas that you say, this is something that we would like you to address. This is going to be important to us and to my child. Thank you so much for listening. And I shall hand back to Mr. Gale now for the responses to the questions and concerns you have raised.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Dixon. I can see that some people have joined during your presentation, or your part of the presentation. Could I just reassure you that we are recording this? We will be sending out to parents, and we will have further opportunities for follow-up and some questions. We want this process of a consultation to be as thorough as we possibly can have it. So I am going to go to some questions which have been sent in advance. I'm hoping that we've set it up in a way that will enable people to send in questions as we speak. If that isn't the case and you can't see that, because this is a forging new territory for us, and I may have maybe not set it up in the correct way, please do email us. I can get my emails as we are presenting and tackling some of the pre-sent in questions. So do feel that you can email either me, that's joegale@gatton-park.org.uk, or Mrs. Dixon, which is Kirsten Dixon at gatton-park.org.uk. So the first question is one I will tackle, and it's nicely complementing on the reform. I think that's both us and the government, hopefully, and appreciating the focus on relationships and managing of self and others and emotions. I agree with that. It's a really strong change that we're very pleased to see. Do we expect to deploy this new curriculum with the assistance of psychologists or with psychological group exercises? Now, we are fortunate in our school that we do have counsellors that work at our school, and we have specialists within our staff who are trained in terms of their personal exploration. They've done training in CBT and psychological studies. They will be consulted and spoken with at times in terms of our development of different things. We are looking at potentially at the idea of group therapy exercises. I don't want to cause any concerns for that, but it's talking about how we can deliver training of individuals to look at how management techniques for emotions and well-being can be employed by individuals. So things like meditation and other techniques to manage our well-being. We might be exploring those. We will have baseline assessments at the start of lessons and topics, and that's going to be used as an opportunity to for pupils to self-reflect, and then we may use certain information to cooperate with our counsellors. Is there anything that you could add to that, Mrs. Dixon, as the mastermind of most of this?
I'm perfectly happy with your answer there. I would completely agree. We've got fantastic staff on board that we will, where it works logistically, we will get on board, and we're planning to get them on board, for example, with little video recordings that become part of lessons and so on, while we cannot actively invite them into lessons. But yes, I think you've answered really quite comprehensively.
Thank you. So the next question, I think that potentially you could tackle. The question is, I would like to know if you use any materials from either Stonewall or Mermaids. Both the organisations are deeply entrenched in the medical transition of minors.
Okay, so for those parents who don't know what Stonewall and Mermaids are, they are fantastic organisations. They have fantastic websites. For youngsters, for parents dealing with youngsters who might be transitioning or might just experience some conflicts in terms of their identity. In terms of using them, our program and lesson plans and material that we use here are all specifically written for the students. We use a variety of bodies and a variety of organizations for inspiration and material, and for the work of LGBTQ, sexual identity, gender stereotyping, we will indeed be looking at both Stonewall Mermaid as well as stuff by the NSPCC and by the NHS and so on. What's important to note, though, is that none of this will just be lifted. Everything of this will be used with careful consideration. The new government guidance has asked us to be really considerate and to make sure that it needs to be absolutely in line with their requirements, which not all material of all bodies has traditionally in the past been. Because we are not lifting it, but we're adapting it to our needs, that won't be a problem. So yes, we will be using these bodies as well as other eternal bodies, but no, we will not do it without vetting them, without making sure they're our materials.
Fantastic, thank you, incredibly thorough. Second, there's another question that I think would be best tackled by you, Mrs. Dixon. This question is that parents have seen a very worrying game being used in some schools, which is they refer to as the dice game. Will this be used? And their view is that the content is inappropriate.
I have to admit, this question sent me searching on the internet, because I wasn't aware of a dice game that was inappropriate. And there are so many dice games for different learning style on the market, and so many of them are really, really useful. I I know which one you mean, in which case I would also consider it as inappropriate in the way it explores terminology for genitalia as well as sexual activity. And so no, if you do indeed refer to that particular dice game, we shan't be using it. What I would like to address though is the fact that we will, as part of relationship and sex education, be addressing sexual activity, and we will be encouraging students to use correct anatomical terminology. So if that is something that worried you, then we have to say we do want, right from the start, we do want students to use the correct terms in line with the science curriculum as well for body parts, and that includes genitalia. We shan't be using slang words, obviously, or derogatory vocabulary, but we also do not expect euphemisms. We shall be using the correct anatomical vocabulary.
Thank you very much. So I think the next question I'll take. Question is in relation to LGBT content in comparison to religious views. I think the parents are articulating, and how we plan to balance the two. I think what I'd like to say is that we need to sensitively explore the fact that there are many different views out there from all different parts of our British community and worldwide community. We always will be adhering to legal rights. We will always be adhering to the British values of respect, tolerance and equality. And if we use that as the backbone of our approach, I think that we will be able to explore many of these different issues, these different ideas and views in a way that takes into considerations all of those different communities or different parts of our community and their views. So just to reiterate that, it's making sure that we have a backbone of referring to British values of respect, tolerance and equality when we are reviewing different groups. There's another question I think I will take, which is, how is the concept of consent and access to pornography handled, particularly in relation to teenage boys? Now, there's a variety of issues that surrounds pornography, obviously, that goes without saying. In terms of the way we are going to tackle it, and the government wants us to tackle this, the key thing that they say is that pupils should know that specifically sexually explicit material such as pornography presents a distorted picture of sexual behaviours. It can damage the way people see themselves in relation to others and negatively affect how they behave towards sexual partners. So there's some key issues there in relation to body image, some key issues there in relation to relationships, healthy relationships and unhealthy relationships, and there's some key issues there relating to consent. And all of those are tackled at different points in a child's journey for the school, looking at the age appropriate way of tackling that particular area. So for example, in year 11, they would look more at sex in the media, impact of drugs on sexual decisions, and areas around pornography there. In younger years, they might tackle some of the issues surrounding pornography without explicitly going into a detailed discussion about what pornography is and some of the more sort of challenging ideas that children in year 7 just certainly wouldn't be equipped to deal with. So they might be looking, for example, at healthy and stable relationships, which I think prepares them and gives them a foundation for understanding why pornography is wrong. And I think that's the way in which we tackle it, looking at the underpinning issues of a particular topic. So hopefully we will tackle that in a number of different ways, looking, as I said, at consent, body image and so on. Is there anything you could add to that? It's quite a tricky topic, Ms. Dixon.
I just want to quickly add that this obviously will also play a part in whenever we look at the relevance of information technology. And this is why it's already relatively early in there, because students will explore different sites on the internet out of curiosity and sometimes by accident, and we want them to be prepared on how to handle it if they stumble across inappropriate sites, and let us know about the safety. Equally, there will obviously be safety advice for you, how to put measures into place, but we want to encourage them to be open if they do have these encounters on the internet. So we were exploring legal ages for this, and why it is so inappropriate and why there are illegal sites out there. And you've already mentioned consent education. I think what, from my point of view, what's really, really important out there is that pornography really portrays sexual relationships in a completely unrealistic manner that does never involve consent considerations or negotiations. And one of the things that's so important to us in this relationship education is that they understand that that must be a prerequisite to any sexual activity, and everything else is criminal. And so apart from discouraging it and tackling the illegal use of IT and so on and so forth, I think that other part that you've already mentioned, the consent, is really, really important. It'll creep up in different years under different topics, but always age appropriate and always taking into consideration the background of the children.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Yes, some really important issues that you added to that answer. I think that's all of the questions that we've had, and we haven't had any sent through during the presentation. As I said, for those of you watching this as a video clip after the event has live streamed, we are still going to be receiving questions, and we will be explaining how to do that in a follow-up communication in our newsletter. The final thing I'd like to say is just to outline the next steps, which are that we will be developing our draft policy. Mrs. Dixon and I have already been working on that with reference to lots of different advice and guidance. We're going to use the feedback we have from parents, the questions that we've been sent in, to consider key elements of it. We are going to work with staff and governors to review our draft policy and seek to get more parent feedback on it. And then we will look at final policy changes and final governor approval. At the moment, we are putting on hold some of the newer content which has been introduced in this new reform until we have completed this parent consultation. We have been given a little bit more space to introduce this by the government due to obvious delays caused this year with significant challenges education has faced, and in fact the whole country has faced. But we are trying to move through this consultation as quickly as we can whilst gathering feedback to ensure that we can start to teach these key topics as quickly as possible. Thank you very much for joining us. Mrs. Dixon, thank you very much for your hard work in preparing for this and all the work you're doing to prepare for delivering this really important area. As I started off by saying, I truly believe that PSHE is and can be argued to be one of the most important things that we do within school. My daughter, I'm hoping, will benefit from this massively, and it will help her to have healthier relationships and to flourish as an individual. Thank you very much for your time.